Welcome back, everybody. This is the week of July 29th, and we're coming back to the compound, at least to record this first segment. A lot of things, again, happened. We interviewed Doug Miller last episode. It was actually a great episode. We got a lot of great comments from everybody on both sides of the fence that we're talking about law enforcement use of force. I attempted to get in there and answer as many questions as I could. Apparently, the instructor wanted me to let you know, Doug Miller, he was actually trying to log in, but having some difficulties with his YouTube channel, not his YouTube channel, but his YouTube account, and for some reason was unable to get in there and respond back to some of your guys' comments. But I wanted to basically bring this introductory segment out again from the compound here and start us off for this upcoming episode. I've actually been studiously trying to do a lot of public records requests on a lot of different incidents that have been going on in the Ohio area. I actually had an officer send me a video from I believe it was either a TikTok or an Instagram account called Cleve Top, CLETOP. I'm going to actually drop that video after this introduction segment. I thought it was very important for everybody to see the complete lawlessness in Cuyahoga County. And most of it, again, to our top Cuyahoga County prosecutors, O'Malley, Samantha Soul, Greg Mussman. These are the people that are out there violating police rights. Yes, police rights. Police do have rights. And they're out there violating those rights on a daily basis, trying to indict every police officer that actually takes any type of enforcement action whatsoever. Especially East Cleveland, obviously you can see. Officers in East Cleveland would not have tolerated anything like this that you're going to observe in this video. And I guess Cleveland's playing it safe. I have nothing but respect for Cleveland police, most of their officers, and unfortunately, this is where it has obtained. This is where it stopped for Cleveland. They're being able to enforce any type of law enforcement whatsoever, and in fear of civil repercussions, in fear of job displacement, and in fear of being indicted by Mike O'Malley and or any type of federal law enforcement because of their consent decree that they have. But you'll see this video. It's quite appalling. And again, this never would have been tolerated in East Cleveland. I'm sure today it is tolerated because essentially the entire department is scared to do anything at this point because they're afraid to be indicted. So I had some public records requests relative to another officer that had been recently indicted out in Lakemore, Ohio. And I'll be honest, I don't think I actually have ever heard of Lakemore prior to this incident. But the officer was responding to some sort of burglary in progress. And it's sort of gone a lot of different ways on this story that I was going to present because the officer has gotten into some other legal matters since my initial public records request. And mind you, my initial public records request was back on June 26th, started with the Lakemore Police Department, and I've done public records requests since then with Summit County Sheriff's Department, who apparently took over part of the investigation. I've done public records requests from the Ohio Attorney General's office, who presently indicted, through special prosecution, indicted the officer. And then there was some sort of incident that occurred in Medina County where after the officer was placed on administrative leave relative to the officer-involved shooting, he got into some sort of altercation in Medina and faces charges there. But what I want to focus on is obviously the officer-involved shooting because it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I can't get real deep dive into it until I get his body camera from the village of Lakemore. Now, they did respond. They did send me a DVD, and unfortunately that DVD didn't have any audio. So I actually did speak with one of the sergeants there, who assured me that he would be giving me not only that officer, but there was actually a second officer on scene. Not only the shooting officer, but the other officer's body camera as well, with the audio. So we're keeping our fingers crossed, and hopefully by the time this video gets pushed out, I might be able to get some of that in the works. The other thing I wanted to sort of talk about was this new threat. I don't know if anybody's paid attention to an attorney. Her name is Kim Corral, and she actually represents a lot of officers from the FOP, Fraternal Order of Police, and officer-involved shootings and other types of matters. She actually represented the Euclid officer, who was initially convicted, but actually won on an appeal relative to his use of force incident that occurred in Euclid that I did on another episode, and I'll try to link that if you haven't seen that one. But Kim Corral was just utterly smashed by O'Malley in a press release on another defendant that she actually has. And I guess I have to back up a little bit, because you have to understand, not only does she represent officers from the FOP, she obviously has her own private practice where she actually does a lot of Project Innocence cases. And in one of those cases just came out, and I'm going to try to go into a little bit on one of the segments here on this episode, explaining what happened with her client, what we knew, or what was known by the prosecutor O'Malley at that time, and prosecutors O'Malley just statement, which was totally atrocious to Miss Corral. And so I'm hoping that she has some sort of recourse that she's able to do against O'Malley relative to this, because O'Malley definitely doesn't like anybody who knows more about the law than he does. And unfortunately, Miss Corral does know quite a bit more than Prosecutor O'Malley does. And so anyways, we'll get into that also. But we're going to wind down here this introduction segment. Going to drop in against the again the video that I received from that CLE. And again, I can't remember if it's on Instagram or what type of account it is. Hopefully by the time I post edit this, I can let you know. But I'm going to drop this video and let me know what you think.
Sheriff out. Oh, they on some different shit. What is that hanging out the back of this shit? Is that the dog?
Hit the liquor lights, fake right, nigga, bustin' last. Safety come first, but for real, nigga, fuck a bell. Bitch in the back of the car and she shaking eyes. Can't draw, don't get to saying that, cause I'ma do the Dave Smith. Ain't even fucking with me, all I do is I. Fat kids, 40s, top speed like 2 some. Niggas love capping on the book.
Welcome back, everybody, to our second segment here on the Tentacles of Cuyahoga County. First, I wanted to respond to a comment that I had. Somebody had left a comment stating that they love me, but didn't care for my music. Something along that lines. I'll post it. And I just wanted to respond to you, one of my valued listeners, that if you truly loved me, you would love my music. Anyways, this music was actually given to me by a listener of the show who knows that I really enjoy alternative style of music, and they actually made this mix for me. So I'm actually very appreciative to it. And me personally, I actually love it. Hopefully it's not enough to drive everybody away. I don't know. So, we've been doing quite a few interviews, and I know a lot of you have asked me for any updates on what's going on with East Cleveland and surrounding. And I still also want to get back and comment a little bit about the video that I had implanted relative to the Cleveland incident. Why don't we do that now? I guess it would be more chronologically making sense. So, for those that are in the podcast land, and I still really haven't figured out the podcast, honestly, because I'm more of a YouTuber, so I apologize for those that are actually listening on the podcast, because often I honestly forget about you guys. But if you were listening on the podcast, essentially, and I actually meant to bring it up, you would have observed they refer to themselves as Kia Boys. And there was one particular car. There was actually several cars that were in the video, but one particular car, you essentially had a Cleveland police officer sitting in the middle of an intersection with their emergency lights activated. And you saw one particular car filled with all sorts of people screaming, yelling, throwing their hands out the window, and they were literally doing circles and laps around this police car at a pretty, high rate of speed. And I mean, we're not talking once or twice. We're talking, I don't know. I meant to count it. We're talking a lot of times that they were doing circles. And you see, this is also one of the parts that in the podcast land that you guys are missing, because once I go back and post edit, things like, I can't recall how many times they did the circles. I actually probably go back and review the video, and I'll put it over as an overlay, how many times they did it. So you're missing a lot of the post editing if you're in the podcast land. And you're messing up the show's analytics, honestly. I don't know. People somehow, when I was researching what to do with getting this show, they highly recommended doing cross-platform marketing to get an audience, and podcast was one of them. So that's what I did. I went in and marketed it to Buzzsprout, who I think goes on Apple Podcasts. They actually do, I don't know, several podcasts. So when I upload a Buzzsprout, they actually upload to multiple podcast platforms. I also do Spotify. And again, this is something I probably often forget to talk about, is everywhere this channel, this show is available. But again, and I keep having to gloat, and I only am able to gloat because of you folks. I just wanted to share the analytics. So just on the last show, I was explaining where there's 3,500. We were up to 3,500 watch hours, which unlocked the first tier of becoming a YouTube partner. And they refer to that as a crowd sharing. I had some people ask me about it, so hopefully I don't bore everybody else. But YouTube essentially has two different levels, if I'm understanding. They may have more. I have no idea, honestly, at this point. But the first level is what they refer to as the crowd sharing, which is 300,000 watch hours, and I think you have to have 500 subscribers. And when you unlock that, you are able to do a private members only area. You can actually unlock specific icons for people to purchase when they comment on your channel. I honestly haven't done much with it. I think there's also a super thanks button that gets imposed on your videos where people can directly donate to you. Right now I was using the Buy Me a Coffee app. I always have to make certain that everything is taxable, and all the records are kept, for taxation purposes. We'll get into that in a moment, but I did want to the analytics currently. So just within the last 28 days, I've actually had 30,000 views just in the last 28 days with 1.5 thousand watch hours. So, actually, let me screenshot that so when I post edit that I can put it up here so everybody can see. So when we actually go to lifetime, which again you need those 3,000 watch hours, or for the first tier, 4,000 for the second tier in one calendar year, and I am proud to say that lifetime is now showing my channel has gotten 80,060 views so far, and I am at the 4,000 watch hours. So I have to wait because it takes a couple of days for whatever reason for YouTube to actually go in and do the analytics. Apparently they do some sort of review. And I mean, this isn't just because of the tier unlocking. They do it all the time. So usually your stats are several days behind because YouTube has to manually review. I don't know if it's manual or not, but they somehow do some sort of review to make certain that the analytics are, what do they call it, organic. So that you don't have somebody essentially on keep hitting, or you don't have someone producing content and they're just hitting replay 1,000 times. In order for a stat to count in YouTube, I believe it has to be unique, meaning it has to be like a unique IP address, essentially. So one person couldn't theoretically just continue to hit replay to get their stats. So we are moving on with somewhat of an update with the East Cleveland things, and let me pull up. I had pulled up a motion that Miss Kimberly Corral had filed relative to her client that's involved in this debacle with the corruption of Cuyahoga County. So unfortunately, the county appears to be winning, and I want everyone to stop and listen and take what I say and pretend that you believe me for half a second. So you're a police officer and you're enforcing East Cleveland law. You're actually reducing violent crime dramatically. And all of a sudden you're indicted for some sort of use of force by the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office. And it's not really any amount of force that no other police officer in Cuyahoga County is using. I had the whole couple of segments or shows relative to use of force trying to explain what Ohio's standard for use of force is. So when you're looking at these videos, which most of the time the prosecutors have only released like very quick excerpts of the videos, but the prosecutors indicted multiple officers from East Cleveland, and it's sort of frustrating because I actually watch a couple of these audit shows. Some of them are better than others. They're called First Amendment audits. I don't know if anybody knows what it is, but essentially they go out with cameras to different locations that are in the public, and they film, and generally they get really hostile reactions from government workers and the police, which is sort of embarrassing in many instances because I see what these officers' reactions are, and they're totally ludicrous. I mean, it's a camera. Get over it. But the one of my favorite audit shows was talking about the corruption of East Cleveland police.
Hey everybody, KULT News back again with another video. Today, we're in Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah, that Cleveland, Ohio. Now, we did a little Googling to see what the situation is with the police in Cleveland. And this may be a shock to many people who live in Ohio, but the police in Cleveland, Ohio, they are corrupt as oh, aren't they? Aren't they? Woo! Yeah, she knows what I'm talking about. So, the police, Google Cleveland, Ohio police. And you know, add in words like corrupt or assault or charged, lawsuit. We found dozens and dozens and dozens of articles that make it very clear that the police in Cleveland, Ohio, especially East Cleveland, Ohio, oh man, they are rotten to the core.
And he was doing an audit, I believe, in Cleveland. And it sort of disheartened me because here you have all of these people that have no idea of what's happening in East Cleveland and with the Cuyahoga County Prosecutors Office, and they just assume that East Cleveland police is corrupt. And it's extremely disheartening because, folks, these people were just out there, these officers were out there in performance of their job, trying, under my directives, trying to reduce violent crime. We were taking a proactive stance, and it was working. The violent crime was shrinking. I really wish I still had access to my stats because I would love to tell you exactly how much, but it was reduced dramatically. But anyways, I want you to envision that you're these officers. You're sitting there minding your own business, and then boom, Channel 19 tells you that you're indicted. And, you know, several weeks later, you get the paperwork in the mail. But once you're indicted, you're essentially laid off work. You're suspended without pay. And again, let's face it, you're working for East Cleveland. You weren't getting paid that much to begin with. So being laid off for any amount of time is going to hurt very dramatically. So, and because you've just been freshly indicted, it's not like you can go down and get another job. And most of the skill sets of being a police officer are being a police officer. There isn't too many other things that you can transition with that training over to do. So here you are, minding your own business, you get indicted, you have no income now. They offer you these crazy plea deals, which often include prison time. And again, you're just performing your job. You haven't done anything wrong. Then they get upset because they actually really haven't honestly investigated anything you're doing. And you can tell that by the discovery that they send over to you, or generally send over to your attorney. They've done no actual investigation. And then they threaten to re-indict you, what's called a superseding indictment. They're going to indict you, well, hey, we've been looking, and we've been looking very hard, and so now we came up with 3 other things that you've supposedly have done, 20 other things that you've supposedly done in my case, and we're going to re-indict you for those things too. So unfortunately, after these things have been going on for the better part of 2 years, folks, 2 years. and they're all for stall tactics. And everybody can say, oh, you know, Cuyahoga County, the justice system must be slow. And it is. But this is all calculated by the prosecutor. They just continue to stall as long as they can. And I'm going to show you a prime example of how they stall even after 2 years. But unfortunately, what I was trying to say is many of the officers have accepted a plea. And again, just because the officers have accepted a plea doesn't mean that they've done anything wrong. Just unfortunately, they were overcharged, which Mike O'Malley has previously stated that he never overcharges crimes. But the officers were overcharged. And they've been unemployed for essentially 2 years, or if they've had employment, it's been working at very menial jobs that pay nothing, even less than East Cleveland, which is very hard to believe. So we're going to go through here. Tyler Mudson took a plea. Daniel Toomer recently just took a plea. John Hartman just took a plea. I'm going to have to click on, I can't remember. Yes, Tristan Homan recently took a plea. Laurice Mans, I think, is still fighting hard. Yes, still set for trial at this point. Trey DeHart Robinson took a plea. Ian McGinnis still fighting hard. And he's, again, his incidents actually involve being cleared by not one agency, by two agencies. I'm going to love to see this in trial. He was cleared by his incidents, and he's got two slightly different incidents, but one of them was cleared by Ohio State Highway Patrol as well as Cleveland Police. So I can't wait to see that come to court. So Larry McDonald is still fighting in the fight. He was grossly overcharged. I think we've talked about his pursuits and how Euclid even actually exonerated him, and two independent witnesses that have nothing to do with law enforcement whatsoever observed what happened and exonerated that he was not in any type of pursuit. Can't wait to see that. And then Anthony Holmes, probably him and Mans are the ones that I feel the most horrible for, because they literally did nothing and have been indicted just for pure politics of O'Malley. So, and it's sort of like McCarthyism. I don't know if anybody is old enough to remember McCarthyism. And it was actually, I think, honestly, slightly before my time, but I mean, obviously it was something that we studied in history. It was, basically, hey, we're going to label you as a communist unless you can come back and tell us who's more of a communist. And that's what the investigators for the Cuyahoga County Prosecutors, we call it the Bobs, Robert D. Simone, who was a pretty much a very unliked person from Parma Police Department, according to the Parma officers. He wasn't very well liked, very unethical in Parma. Somehow gets this job with the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office. And anyways, they expose McCarthyism. Hey, they drag people in, and I was actually never given the courtesy to explain anything. Not that I would. Anyways, but I was actually never even given the courtesy to go down and speak to them. But they drag officers down and say, hey, these are the 20 charges we have against you. Do you want to mitigate some of those? You want to reduce some of those charges? You need to come up with a better communist. And that's essentially what's happened. And in the course of doing so, I think some of these statements are going to be shown to be false. These McCarthyism statements that officers have given are going to be proven false when it goes to trial. So I don't know how that's going to affect their plea deals, but I really don't care, honestly, at that. And I forgot, actually, the biggest guy, the guy that I'm actually on the screen with, is Kyle Wood. Kyle Wood is still very much into a fight. And it's Kyle Wood that I actually wanted to discuss a little bit. So I'll put the motion up. Essentially, our McCarthyist investigation group had a 2-hour interview with a co-defendant, John Hartman. And I don't know if you guys do, Wood stole. Did I mention Stoll? I can't remember if I mentioned him in my recap. Stoll also is continuing the good fight. So they were supposed to be going to trial, I think at the beginning of last week. And literally right before, I think the Friday before, the prosecution gives them a video from a co-defendant named John Hartman. And from that video, they give them 11-minute excerpt from that video. Now, again, let's back up for a second. This has been going on for 2 years. They've had this video 6 months prior to trial. But the Friday, trial's supposed to start on Monday. The Friday before the trial, the prosecutors decide to give defense an 11-minute excerpt of a 2-hour conversation. And this is what I was talking about. This is the stall tactic. This is the Cuyahoga County special, right? This has been going on for 2 years. They just want to continue to stretch this out as long as possible, because the longer they're able to stress it out, the more stress it puts on the officer, the more likely it is to induce a plea agreement. So they've had this video for 6 months. They give it on a Friday right before the Monday trial. And then even after they give it, they only give it 11 minutes of it. Now, folks, there's a Constitution. And every defendant has the ability to face their accusers and have all of the evidence given to them from their accusers. And here you have a 2-hour interview, which they're trying to give them 11 minutes of. And this is where I talk about previously in the previous segment, the violation of cop rights that Samantha Soul, Greg Mussman, Mike O'Malley continue to generate on these East Cleveland cases. And these are just unheard of. And I don't know. When I put these out, a lot of times people are afraid to actually comment. But I'm going to try. Are there any prosecutors, or even anybody in law enforcement, because I've never seen this occur, never, where you indict somebody and after 2 years, you still are doing an active investigation. And again, I've always prefaced, yes, there may be one or two things after someone is indicted that you need to tighten up, cross the I, cross the T, isn't it? Yes, it is. Cross the T, dot the I. All right. There might be one or two of those things, but here you're literally investigating, trying to still put the case together after 2 years. This is insane. It's absurd. I cannot believe that there is not a larger entity that's not paying attention to this. The fact of take my plea bargain or I'm going to re-indict you is atrocious enough for someone to say, wait, something's wrong here. But anyways, if someone actively is a prosecutor now, you've been a prosecutor or even in law enforcement, let me know if you've ever seen anything like this prior. That after 2 years, they're still doing an active investigation, and after 2 years, they continue to stall. Those guys were ready to go to trial Monday. They were ready to put this part of their life behind them. They were ready to get found not guilty. And the prosecutors continue to stall. I wouldn't doubt that they try to stall again. But anyways, I'm sure that I've put the motion up to give all of the details of this motion so that everybody can see it, because I am all about full transparency. So since we're talking about Kimberly Corral, the next segment we're going to go into a little more of a deep dive here with the things that just came up with Mike O'Malley statement against Miss Corral. And again, I truly hope she has some ability to get some remedy for his slander against her. So anyways, next segment, folks. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. We're on the, I think, fourth segment. Third or fourth. Who knows? I've had some comments about my Beatles poster back there. I added right here, Walking Dead poster that was signed by every actor, the original cast of The Walking Dead. Used to be a big Walking Dead fan. I haven't obviously, since Rick left the show, I haven't paid attention to it after that. So I used to be one of those geeks that actually went down to Georgia. Georgia? Yeah, Georgia. I only did it once, but went down for the Walking Dead, I think it's the Walk Dead Fest, whatever it's called. I don't know. Allergies still killing me, so I'm drinking my Dunkin' Donuts here, trying to calm my throat down. So, a lot of things going on this week, as usual. As I'm putting out the show, you know, things happening, things coming out. And I wanted to bring up an incident here. I was waiting for my drums to die out. I guess they're still going, so I'll keep talking here. Hang on. Actually, I'll keep drinking my coffee, but... All right. There we go. So, a lot of things come up as I'm bringing out the show, you know, as I'm recording segments and so on and so forth. So, a couple things came to my attention. One, I'm still going to be talking about Kim Corral's, attorney Kim Corral, the incident with the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office with that. There was also a short excerpt that I saw, which I thought was ironic, from the video that I was showing you before, the people racing around the police. Those were Kia boys. And this week, the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office has released that they've had a significantly reduced... So the Kia boys, I'm sorry, maybe I should back up. The Kia boys essentially steal cars. That's what they do. And they steal a lot of them. And so the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office came out with a statement basically stating that they had reduced the thefts by the Kia boys by 20%. And I thought it was ironic, especially just showing you the video that I believe was posted on July 24th on TikTok of the Kia boys doing the circles around the Cleveland police car. I thought that was quite ironic, but I'm going to show you the article. I don't have any of the stats. It's way too late for me to try to request the stats. I only bring it up just basically to show you the pure asinine things that the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office tries to get their constituents to believe. But anyways, I'm going to show you the comments from the article because they sell my point. There's probably a 20, 30, 50 comments about, hey, what are you smoking, O'Malley? The Kia boys haven't stopped stealing cars. So I'll bring that up. But in the interim, I want to bring up an incident. And again, I always tread on these things very lightly because I am honestly very pro good cop, right? So I hate bringing up other incidents that highlight other officers because I don't want people to think that I'm disparaging necessarily on those officers or their actions. But what I'm trying to do, especially in this episode, is bringing you updates from the East Cleveland indictments. And since a lot of, honestly, the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's deputies have said a lot of things about East Cleveland, which I find completely ironic. So I started in East Cleveland in 1999. And I don't know, I can't even tell you. I think two layoffs I went through. But during one of those layoffs, I was laid off and I was brought back while everybody else was continuing to be on layoff because, you know, they set it at whatever level it is. You know, this is the amount of officers we can have. And I was literally at that point where I was laid off. An officer got injured. He was put on disability for a while, so I was brought back. And during that time, we had the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department stationed in East Cleveland responding to calls. So I find it very ironic for two reasons. One, everybody is always talking about, oh, you should bring the sheriff's department in to patrol, which I honestly did as chief. I did attempt to get the sheriff's department to supplement on several occasions and was always told that because of their manning, they were unable to. They basically can't even man the positions that they have just for the duties they have. But anyways, going back to when I was laid off, it was quite ironic to me because they were always pretty heavy-handed. I mean, we would go to scenes, the East Cleveland officers, and we would be just sort of like, man, it's, probably unnecessary, the amount of force that you're using on this person. And again, I have to attribute it that most of the deputies that are working for the sheriff's department have zero road experience. You have to understand, Cuyahoga County is a totally incorporated county, and there isn't one square inch that isn't already governed by a police department. So the sheriff's office in Cuyahoga County, 99% of what they do is courtroom security. They have special, units out there, a sex offender unit, a unit that monitors the ankle monitoring brackets, whatever. But 99% of what they do is courtroom, and so they have very little road experience. So I'm going to bring up this video that was just released recently. This is from Channel 3 of an incident with a traffic stop with one of the deputies. And I'm not, again, I have to put this out there and prefacing, okay? I'm not disparaging that this officer did anything wrong. Use some verbiage that's going to sound pretty profane, but hey, I hate to tell everybody, this is what happens when adrenaline kicks in, okay? Police are human, adrenaline kicks in, you say some pretty crazy things. Beyond that, I don't see where the officer necessarily did anything wrong, but I wanted to point out this incident is very similar to the same amount of use of force that most of these officers from East Cleveland were indicted for. And I find it ironic that, again, especially because I personally have heard from deputies who feel, oh, what East Cleveland officers did were wrong, and yes, they deserve to be indicted. Here's one of your own. Cuyahoga County deputies, here's one of your own, using the same similar amount of force. They're not indicted. I always caution people to make certain that you understand the entire situation prior to making comments, and I think East Cleveland's one of them. And again, I think that this court case, this trial coming up with Wood, Stoll, McDonald, Holmes, is gonna open a lot of eyes to what the prosecutors have been doing. Everybody else, unfortunately, has taken the L, and we all pled out. And but these officers are going forward, and I think it's going to open a lot of things up. But anyways, I want to share this screen with you here, this video. I have to find it. My apologies. Here we go.
Now to some newly obtained body camera footage of a traffic stop in downtown Cleveland involving Cuyahoga County deputies. The video shows moments after a driver apparently refused to pull over and resisted arrest. Our Kaitor K is breaking down that video.
Put your hands up, sir. I'm going to you up. I'm telling you. Put your hands up.
It's the early hours of December 8th, 2023. The Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Office has released body camera video of deputies pulling over 46-year-old Kevin Kynes in downtown Cleveland. Deputies report Kynes sped through a red light and ignored the siren and emergency lights to pull over for a few blocks before complying outside the County Justice Center.
I said put your hands up. I'm going to drill you in the head.
An incident report says that out of concern that Kynes was trying to pull a weapon from his waist, Sergeant Timothy Coyne struck him with his hand multiple times, and that Kynes struck Coyne back. The video shows that as Kynes resists arrest, Coyne strikes some more. You can then see that things escalate.
Are you gonna give up? I'm gonna tase him. You gonna give up? I'm gonna tase you, dude. Tase him.
Over the next 45 seconds, the video shows Coyne deploys his taser on Kynes 3 times, and they finally get him in handcuffs.
Why y'all got me cuffed up?
Because you're under arrest, sir.
For what?
For resisting arrest and for your warrants.
Kynes was indicted for assault, obstruction, and resisting arrest, but the case was dismissed about a month ago after defense attorneys argued that his rights were violated. The sheriff's office says that upon a use of force review, that no misconduct was found and that Sergeant Coyne remains employed with the sheriff's office. Russ.
Kites are okay, live in downtown Cleveland. Thank you.
So again, I'm not even commenting on the level or use of force. I'm stating that it's similar to the same level of force that East Cleveland used on many of their incidents. And their cases actually weren't thrown out in court. Many of their so-called victims were indicted. And I believe in Ian McGinnis's case, I believe the guy is in prison. Which... Actually, I think actually several. Wood, Stoll, and Ian McGinnis's, I think all their victims were in prison. None of their charges were actually reduced or dropped, which I find interesting. But, like I said, I wanted to bring this out, just in comparison, especially to ring out to those law enforcement officers. Go back and watch some of those videos that the prosecutor, the 10-second excerpt that the prosecutors have chosen to show the media and the public, and understand that they're not showing the entire incident. They're not showing you what led up to the incident or why the officer's there. I mean, I think one of the incidents, the officer were responding to an actual shooting. The guy literally had just shot, I believe, a family member, and the officers didn't know whether the male still had the gun or not when they got in a pursuit with him. Again, the prosecutors just want you to know this little snippet. Okay, we're going to show you a video when the officers are punching the subject, not showing you anything prior or what's happening. So, for all those law enforcement officers, especially you, Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Department, your Sergeant Coyne just used the same level amount of force that those officers in East Cleveland that got indicted. All right, we're going to bring back... Actually, before I get rid of this segment here, I'm going to find the Kia Boys article. Hang on. All right, I found the... it was from Channel 5. I found the video. I'm going to have to go back and try to find the comments after the video here, but... here is the video, as soon as I can... All right, here we go, I think.
Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office says it's starting to feel some relief when it comes to car thefts. For years, the Kia Boys were a huge problem.
Yeah, car thefts are still happening, just not as frequently.
Bull crap.
Brent Caswell joins us live, taking a look at the trends so far this year. Good morning, Brent.
Good morning. The declining trend of car thefts in Cuyahoga County is also echoing in Cleveland. The city of Cleveland is seeing an over 20% decline in car thefts for this first half of the year. The prosecutor's office attributing those successes to smarter policing.
You'll see the same weird walk.
For Kanae Shamar Garcia de Jesus, she considers herself lucky.
That's how I know it's literally the same person.
She says she's dodged becoming a part of county-wide car theft statistics 3 times now. De Jesus is blurred because she doesn't feel comfortable showing her face.
I started seeing it in March. of this year, and I have footage from them trying to get into all of my cars, and it's not the first time they've came.
Supervisor of the Ground Strategies Unit at the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office, Ryan Bokach, says it's starting to feel relief from the Kia Boys trend that swept across the nation in 2022. In late 2022, Kias and Hyundais made 60% of all auto thefts in Cuyahoga County. After Q2 of this year, the prosecutor's office says car thefts countywide have greatly declined. From January until June of this year, there's only been 909 car thefts in Cuyahoga County, compared to thousands in years past.
Law enforcement has done a great job putting these cases together using all
I just want to pause this because I'm trying to figure out how they get that data, because I know most agencies don't share data with the county, so I'm trying to figure out how they got the 900 car data. But anyways.
We've seen a significant decline in those Kia and Hyundai thefts.
While Kia and Hyundai have tried helping the nationwide issue by installing free software updates and distributing car locks, Bokach says it took real problem solving locally.
Law enforcement, when all of a sudden a crime type doubles, they don't double the number of police officers that they have in their departments. So you got to shift resources around.
De Jesus says her neighbor's car was stolen last weekend, but she believes her home surveillance is what saved her time and time again.
That's where I started parking over there, so it's just like straight view, so they will have to be straight in camera, because a camera's right there, but there's only so much you can see.
Perpetrators, if convicted, could face 6 to 18 months behind bars for motor vehicle thefts. However, the prosecutor's office adds it's those repeat offenders they want to keep behind bars to continue this steady decline. Tiffany, John.
Encouraging numbers for sure. Thank you, Bryn.
So again, let me try to find the comments, because they're very humorous. So I'm gonna have to. All right. So apparently, there's no search feature on the Newsbreak app on a desktop. So I'm taking some screenshots. I'll put them in during post editing here for you. It'll never stop. Fake news. I'm glad they feel really from the Kia boys. What about my stuff? Shit was rocked. I was told you got it paid for it. I don't even know what that means. So here are some screenshots from the article. I would love to know where their data is coming from, considering I just had my car stolen Wednesday and they didn't process my car at all. When I got it back, there was straight evidence the thieves left behind. Same, they tried to get mine, but didn't see the club on the steering wheel until after they broke out the window. The police refused to take prints, telling me they only print for violent crimes. Sorry to hear, Joshua. Yes, it's definitely a problem being unaddressed for some of us. Next is Joshua Henry. They did it the same to me. North Olmsted Police refused to view the camera. And this was my point. Yeah, Kia Boys just posted on July 25th in a stolen car. O'Malley really has no comprehension. So, again, just pointing out the audacity of the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office, and once again, trying to make everybody feel that they're the next thing since sliced bread. Anyways, we're going to get back to our last segment here. Reference Kim Corral. The Kim Corral comment that was made by Prosecutor Michael O'Malley. When we come back, we'll be discussing that. Welcome back up, everybody. I had previously recorded this segment, and when I went back, post-edit, it just didn't make any sense to me. I don't even know if I was explaining it correctly or clearly. So I wanted to basically scrap the entire recording, start over, so that hopefully I can explain this correctly. So this is in reference to the statement made by Prosecutor Michael O'Malley against the defense attorney, Kim Corral. And it started with, and every time I share my screen, I don't know if it's the pixelation, it's like a delay. I don't like it. I haven't figured out what's going on with it yet. So normally I try to find an external download piece of whatever I'm using. And unfortunately I can't find anything external that I can directly download. So I have to share my screen in order to record this. But this is from the I-Team relative to this story. So let's see if I can get this going for you.
Wrongfully convicted, Ruel Saylor walked out of court to cheers.
But now the city of Cleveland calls him a chronic liar who's played the system. The city just asked the judge to throw out a lawsuit filed by Saylor against the police.
We caught up with him by phone.
They're saying you've lied so much and in so many ways, it's impossible to even figure it out anymore.
It's the same lie. I didn't put myself in prison. I didn't arrest myself. I wasn't nowhere near that crime when it took place at all. They don't want to pay me.
No doubt about that. Saylor did 15 years in prison, ultimately cleared of murder, but he did admit to perjury, lying about the case. Still, a court declared him wrongfully imprisoned. But here, the city says it has evidence showing Saylor does not deserve any money.
It's only probably 5 people in this whole world that I've been completely honest with about the situation.
The city says it uncovered an elaborate scheme to tamper with witnesses and keep hiding the truth.
Digging up old prison phone calls.
They give them another reason to keep me here.
The state already paid Ruel Saylor more than $650,000 for the wrongful conviction, but the city says that he doesn't deserve a dime from the city, and the taxpayers have already paid to fight the lawsuit.
We're going to do everything we can to make sure the truth comes out and that every penny the taxpayers have lost is recovered.
Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Michael O'Malley issued a statement saying, in part, as a result of these revelations, my office plans on immediately launching a criminal investigation into the conspiracy and fraud committed against the state of Ohio, the city of Cleveland, and the citizens of Cuyahoga County.
Defense attorney Kimberly Corral questions any new revelations. She said in part, Ruel Saylor was convicted of a murder he did not commit and had nothing to do with. What Ruel Saylor knew and when he knew it was a topic discussed by all parties at the time of his exoneration.
Saylor tells us he'll keep fighting.
I feel like I'm being oppressed all over again. I did 15 years wrongfully convicted for a crime I didn't see. They don't want to pay me.
In Cleveland, Peggy Gallick.
Ed Gallick, Fox 8,
So
I-Team.
Based upon these disclosures, we have reason to suspect that attorney Kimberly Corral knew statements her client was providing were false. So, again, this is just a typical ploy by O'Malley. Apparently O'Malley is just like any other politician who apparently doesn't recall the things have been memorialized. So there are actually plenty of film from news agencies that were there during the actual hearing of the dismissal. So essentially, the defendant did perjure himself at some point, but he was not actually involved in the murder or homicide that they actually convicted and sent him to prison. So when he came back, he basically accepted some sort of deal from the prosecutor's office that stated that he would plead guilty to perjury. Now, he'd already served 15 years. Perjury has a maximum, I think, of 10 years, if I'm not incorrect. And the judge basically said, okay, we're going to dismiss your murder charge, but you've pled guilty to the perjury. We're going to sentence you to 10 years maximum on the perjury. Well, he'd already served the 15, so essentially, that was somewhat of a wash. He didn't have to go back into prison is what I'm trying to say. So after that happens, he goes out and starts to litigate his wrongful convictions. And so O'Malley comes out and makes a statement basically implying that Kim Corral had something to do with the false statements that her client was making, false statements that he knew about when he made the plea deal with the defendant in this case. But apparently O'Malley, again, just placating for the press, trying to get his little sound bites, has forgotten that things are memorialized. So I'm going to find the actual sentencing video here. So I mistakenly referred to this as his sentencing. It wasn't a sentencing, but this is a news print article from Idea Stream Public Media, basically talking about right here. This is a quote from Judge Midday talking about Mr. Saylor had nothing to do with this crime. He should have never been arrested. He should have never been indicted. He should have never been tried, and he should have never been sentenced. And throughout the article, basically, and actually it's not in this article. I believe it's a Cleveland.com article where it clearly states essentially that O'Malley, or that O'Malley was aware essentially that the male had perjured himself. That was part of the plea. Again, that's why he pled to the perjury. But apparently O'Malley has now forgotten. So the whole moral, and I'm probably getting lost in the weeds on most of this, but I just I felt that it deserved mentioning because, again, you have a politician, Michael O'Malley, who is just riding the fence as much as he possibly can for his accreditation to the public. And he just forgets what he does, makes these outlandish statements. I mean, he did it with these Cleveland indictments. He goes out and makes these outrageous statements that are most of them are untrue. And again, it's just appalling, and I don't understand why the residents of Cuyahoga County continue to allow this man to be in this position to do so. But anyways, that's the end of the segment here. We got a lot of messages. If you've stuck with me this long, we've gotten a lot of messages relative to the Cuyahoga County deputy's traffic stop. So I might delve into that a little more deeper than I had already put into it in the previous segments, because I've gotten a ton of messages since I actually recorded that segment till now relative to the total irony in it, and most of you are recognizing it, which is great. Most of you are recognizing. This show hasn't even been put out yet, and you folks are sending me messages indicating, hey, did you see this? This is just asinine. This is so much worse than what these Cleveland officers got indicted for. So I'm glad that you guys saw it. Glad you guys messaged me on it. And I'll try to dig into it a little deeper. And again, I'm not disparaging Sergeant Coyne with the Sheriff's Department, but I am disparaging the lack of standards that it on one side it's this way, and for East Cleveland it's this way. So anyways, folks, have a great rest of your week, rest of your weekend, and we'll catch you next week.